I'm Esther. I'm sitting in my car, the engine off, a folder full of receipts on the passenger seat. The silence outside is only broken by the faint hum of the radio. I just left my parents' house after a family dinner that changed everything. As I drove away, I could still see the shocked faces of my family around the dining table. The tension in the air was palpable, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. It all started on my daughter Ava's 8th birthday. Ava is the light of my life. She's a head taller than most kids in her class and has this insatiable curiosity about the world. She collects seashells and spends hours arranging them in patterns. She's the kind of child who could spend an entire afternoon explaining the different types of shells to anyone who will listen. The morning of her birthday, I was up at 5 a.m., as I always am for important family events. I strung up streamers in the living room and put out a cake decorated with seashells because Ava had been obsessed with the beach since last summer. My husband, Jake, had set up a scavenger hunt in the backyard, hiding clues in old jars. By 7 a.m., Ava was bouncing off the walls with excitement. It should have been a simple, happy day. But a week before, my parents called to say they couldn't make it. My mother, Helen, said my father, Arthur, had a dental appointment that couldn't be rescheduled. She said it so robotically that I knew she'd rehearsed it. I didn't argue. I never did. I was the daughter, who always adjusted, always said yes. I told Ava that Grandma and Grandpa had sent a special package instead. Her eyes lit up. She'd always loved their gifts, not because they were expensive, but because she believed they were chosen just for her. I used to believe that too. The package arrived around noon. It was a white box with my mother's handwriting on the label. I set it on the table between a stack of coloring books and a stuffed dolphin from Jake's mother. I went back to frosting the cupcakes, completely unaware that this simple package was about to shatter my world. When Ava opened the box, she pulled out a beautiful pink dress. Her face lit up for a moment, but then she stopped. Her little fingers traced the embroidery on the collar, and she looked up at me with a confused expression. "What is this, Mommy?" she asked. I took the dress, and my hands started to shake. The name stitched on the collar wasn't Ava's. It was my older sister, Iris's. I didn't cry. I just felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. That night, after Ava was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and started pulling bank statements. I knew there was something wrong, but I had no idea how deep the deception went. I'm a certified public accountant at a mid-size firm in Florida. I'm good at my job because I've always had to be. Growing up, Iris got whatever she wanted just by asking. I, on the other hand, had to fight for everything. When I was 15 and needed new running shoes for track, my mother made me write an essay about why I deserved them. She read it at the kitchen table, crossed out half of it, and told me she'd think about it. Meanwhile, Iris got a new phone without even having to ask. I stopped asking for things after a while. I got a job at a local diner at 16 and opened my own savings account. I went to community college and then night school to get my CPA license while working full-time at a tax firm. Every dollar I earned on my own. I thought being useful to my family was a form of love. I thought that if I was always there to fix things, they would value me. But the pink dress with Iris's name on it made me realize that I was wrong. Iris was 5 years older than me. She was the life of the party, always full of confidence and big plans. My mother adored her. They had a special bond that I was never a part of. They would go shopping together and whisper secrets in the kitchen. I was always on the outside looking in. My father, Arthur, was a quiet man. He was a retired carpenter with a bad back. He loved both of us, I think, but he always sided with my mother. He never stood up for me when I was being treated unfairly. The only person who saw the truth was my grandmother, Mildred. She was 90 years old and as sharp as a tack. She lived a few blocks away and would always find a way to talk to me alone when she visited. "You're the strong one," she'd say. "That's why they lean on you and forget to say thank you." I was 13 when she first said that to me. I didn't know what to do with it at the time, but I never forgot it. There was a room at the end of the hallway in my parents' house. It was Iris's old bedroom. After she left, my mother kept it exactly the way it was. Posters on the wall, a blue comforter on the bed, and her old yearbooks stacked on the desk. Nobody ever talked about it, and the door was always closed. It was like a forbidden place. Iris didn't just leave. She caused a storm. For most of her 20s, she bounced from one bad relationship to another, always asking for money. She'd call my parents in the middle of the night, begging for a loan. She'd show up at family gatherings with a new boyfriend and a new scheme, and then disappear before the dishes were done. By the time she was 35, she'd maxed out my parents' credit cards and taken a $20,000 loan from their savings. Then, 3 years ago, she vanished. No call, no forwarding address. Just a text message that said, "I need space. Don't look for me." My mother was devastated. She called me multiple times a day for weeks. She called the police, but they said a 35-year-old woman leaving voluntarily wasn't a missing person. She sat in Iris's room for hours, crying. My father just sat in the living room, silent. And here's the thing that should have warned me. They never blamed Iris. In their eyes, she was a victim of bad luck and bad choices. "She'll find her way back," my mother would say. After Iris disappeared, my parents' finances took a hit. I set up an auto-pay system. I sent them $1,500 a month for their mortgage, $500 for my father's supplemental health insurance, and $150 for the family phone plan. And every few months, my mother would call with an emergency. A leaky roof, a dental bill they hadn't budgeted for. I never said no. I just adjusted my budget and sent the money. Jake never complained, but he asked questions. "Your dad's insurance should cover most of his medical expenses," he'd say. "Are they sure they need all this money?" I always brushed it off, saying it was complicated. I didn't want to face the truth. But the pink dress was the last straw. I started cross-referencing my bank statements with my mother's requests. I found that in the last 12 months alone, I'd sent my parents over $25,000 beyond the regular payments. I pulled up the property tax records and found that they were paid in full. The insurance claims didn't add up either. I decided to go to my parents' house. I knew their schedule. My father had a physical therapy appointment at 10 a.m., and my mother always drove him. They'd be gone for at least an hour and a half. I let myself in with a spare key under the flower pot by the side door. The house smelled like old wood and furniture polish. Everything was just as I remembered it. I walked upstairs, past the bathroom and the linen closet, and stopped at the end of the hallway. The door to Iris's room was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. The closet was full of children's clothes, all embroidered with Iris's name. There were dresses, sweaters, and even a pair of little shoes. These weren't old keepsakes. The tags were new, and the sizes were for a child around Ava's age. In the corner, there was a box. I opened it and found a stack of bank transfer receipts. Each one showed a payment from my parents' account to a recipient in Las Vegas. The name on the receipts was Iris. I sat on the floor and did the math. Over the last 3 years, my parents had transferred over $40,000 to Iris. Every extra dollar I'd sent them, every so-called emergency, had gone straight to her. I heard the front door open downstairs. My mother's voice called up the stairs. "Esther, is that you?" I quickly took pictures of the receipts and the clothes, then closed the closet and walked out of the room. My mother was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. She looked at me, then at the open door behind me. Her face changed, and I could see the recognition in her eyes. "You went in Iris's room," she said, not as a question. "Yes, I did," I replied. She sat down on the bottom step and took a deep breath. "You saw the things I've been collecting for her," she said. "Mom, these aren't for Iris. They're sized for Ava," I said. She looked up at me with a strange expression. "Ava could be our second chance," she said. "Iris made mistakes, but she's still my daughter. She'll come back, and when she does, she'll need to see that we kept her place." I stared at her in disbelief. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking me to accept that she'd been trying to replace Ava with the memory of Iris. My father stood in the living room doorway, his eyes red. He knew what was going on. He'd always known. I picked up my bag and walked out of the house without saying another word. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. When I got home, I sat Jake down and told him everything. He listened quietly, then asked, "So, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to build a file," I said. "I'm going to show them exactly where the money went." Over the next few days, I worked on the file. I printed out all the bank statements, insurance claims, and transfer receipts. I cross-referenced everything and marked the discrepancies in red. By Thursday night, I had a 23-page document. On Friday morning, my phone rang. It was an unknown number from Las Vegas. I almost didn't answer, but then I did. It was Iris. "Esther," she said, her voice soft. "Mom said things are tough right now. I was wondering if you could help out a little." I was speechless for a moment. Then I said, "Are you in Las Vegas?" There was a long pause. "Mom told you?" she asked. "Nobody told me anything. I'm an accountant. I can read a paper trail," I said. She tried to make excuses, but I wasn't listening. I told her about the dress, about all the money I'd sent to my parents that had ended up with her. She didn't have much to say after that. That afternoon, I called my mother. I told her that I'd reviewed the financials and that $38,000 of the money I'd sent them had been transferred to Iris. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You had no right to go through my things." I replied, "You had no right to take my money and lie about where it went." She tried to justify it, saying they were protecting me, but I wasn't buying it. I told her that I was done. I was going to cut off all financial support. My mother threatened to turn the family against me. She said I was the one tearing the family apart. But I was ready. I had the evidence, and I was going to make sure everyone knew the truth. The family dinner was a showdown. My mother had invited everyone, thinking she could outnumber me. There was my grandmother, Mildred, my Aunt Lucy, my uncle, Tom, and a couple of cousins. My mother started by saying that I'd stop helping them financially and that my father's health was at risk. She tried to make me look like the bad guy. I took out the file and the pink dress. I laid them on the table and started to explain. I showed them the receipts, the transfer records, and the clothes with Iris's name on them. My mother was furious. She stood up and shouted, "You had no right to go through our house." But my family could see the truth. My Aunt Lucy looked at my mother in disbelief. "You've been lying to us," she said. My grandmother, Mildred, nodded. "I always knew they were leaning on you too hard, Esther," she said. My father finally spoke up. "I knew what was going on," he said. I was too tired to fight it. I stood up and said, "I'm not going to yell or make demands. I'm just going to tell you what I've done. I've canceled the mortgage auto pay, removed Dad from the insurance plan, and dropped your phone lines from my account. I don't hate you, but I won't let you use my money to support Iris anymore. And you will not use Ava to replace the child you lost." I picked up the file and walked out of the house. As I drove home, I felt a sense of relief. The truth was out, and I was finally taking control of my life. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was inevitable. The mortgage payments were late, my father's insurance lapsed, and their phone lines went dead. Iris stopped calling. The money had dried up, and so had her so-called love. A month later, things were different. Ava started second grade. She wore a new dress on the first day, a yellow one with her name stitched on the collar in purple thread. She ran her finger over the embroidery and smiled at me. "It says my name," she said. Jake and I recalculated our budget. We put half of the money we'd been sending to my parents into Ava's college fund, and the other half towards a new car. Saturday mornings were quiet. There were no more phone calls from my mother about emergencies. I drove past my parents' house once, and the curtains were drawn. I didn't stop. The door at the end of the hallway in their house. I don't know if it's open or closed now. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I've learned that some doors are better left unopened. Cutting them off didn't make me the villain. It made me the author of my daughter's story, and I'm okay with that.